Okay, I'm going to do a little more reading. Dishwasher about Dishwasher Pete, Peter Jordan.
Thank you. Dishwasher Pete. Our next guest is the author of a new book entitled Dishwasher, One Man's Quest to Wash Dishes in All 50 States. Please welcome the one, the only Dishwasher Pete, Pete Jordan. Welcome to the program. Now, tell people what happened the last time you're
Now, I'm going to do...
supposed to be on the show. Did I get that mostly right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me back.
Okay, so that's Dishwasher Pete. I'm on chapter 3 starting. So I did the first couple chapters before in the... I've got some videos on that. So we're at chapter 3. And let's see, what were we doing? Chapter 3, a date with dishes. A date with the dishes, all right? This is like page 18. Within minutes of my arrival, my new dorm roommate, Tom, complained about his Chevy Camaro. Okay, so he's going to college now. It's been brand new when his parents gave it to him for his 16th birthday. Now the car was getting too old for his liking. What do you drive? He asked me. Not only did I not possess a car or even a driver's license, I'd never before met a teen who owned a car. Sure, a few times I'd gone joyriding as a passenger in vehicles friends had stolen, but a teenager owning a new car at that? This was my first clue that I'd landed in a foreign world. As Tom unpacked, he lined our sink and medicine cabinet with all kinds of shampoos, conditioners, gels, and sprays for his hair. He apologized for taking up so much shelf space. It wasn't a problem, though. I didn't have much to contribute, not even a bottle of shampoo. My lone hair care product, given to me a few years before by my sister after she'd complained about all the knots while cutting my hair, was a plastic brush. Tom found this strange, as he did my clothing. I was wearing the going off to college shirt my mom had bought me the week before. It had a little turtle on it. Tom's shirts had little alligators. You can't possibly wear that, he said. He claimed my shirt was a cheap imitation of his, and that it would be foolish to be seen in it. I didn't get it. A shirt was a shirt. Why would anyone care what tiny creature inhabited its breast? But, as stupid as his comment sounded, Tom was right. That first week, several other students also took the effort to point out that my shirt was a shoddy excuse for whatever was cool. Located in a wealthy suburb, the school was populated with suburban students from well-off families. I found myself in the land of mid-1980s preppies without even knowing such creatures existed. Unlike my overly groomed male classmates who were decked out in topsider boat shoes and pastel eyes-on shirts, I had long greasy hair, a scruffy face, and wore whatever clothes fit me from the all-you-can-fit-in-a-bag for $5 thrift store. And while the girls in my neighborhood had thought I was too nice to garner their attention, now the pendulum swung far in the opposite direction. The rich, blonde, ponytailed co-eds in their convertible VW Rabbits gave me a wide berth. Judging by how often I was asked what the hell was I doing at this college, it became obvious that I looked and acted out of place. At first, I took offense at being singled out. The implication was that everyone else belonged there and I didn't. But then again, everyone else was there to get a career-inducing education. I, on the other hand, was only there because it was somewhere other than my old neighborhood. During those first few weeks of school, whenever I was walking down the street with any of my new classmates, I'd look around nervously for approaching cop cars. "Cops coming!" I once said to Tom. Then I turned my back to the street and pretended to look in a shop window. "Yeah," Tom said, "so what?" In case you got warrants or you're on probation or you're carrying something. "Why would the cops stop to bother with us?" he asked. "We're just going to the store." "That's plenty of reason, enough reason," I said. But it wasn't. Here, remarkably, cops drove right past me without even slowing down. And when I'd mosey along sidewalkless, 6-lane suburban boulevards, carloads of teens might yell, "Loser!" But they never bothered to beat me up. Though I found this rich kid environment bizarre, at the same time I kind of liked it. I was able to stop worrying about being assaulted or arrested for merely being in public. I relaxed. College felt like vacation. While my goal was to escape the city had been achieved, I was now stuck trying to figure out what to make of my education. Oops, did I just fuck it up? No. I was now stuck trying to figure out what to make of my education. I did not know what to study. Unlike my classmates, I had no major, let alone a career path. Tom was going to be a lawyer. Other classmates talked about becoming lawyers, and others aspired to being accountants and dentists. When asked my own plans, I always said the future did not include a professional career. What I wanted was to be free of a job, to travel the country, and have friends nationwide whom I'd visit. So my standard answer was, I'm just going to crash on your floor when you're a successful lawyer, accountant, dentist. It was a claim many took as a joke, but years later they discovered firsthand that I wasn't kidding. Though my financial aid grants and loans paid most of my schooling to cover the rest, I had to work. Through the school's job placement center, I got hired to unload boxes at the campus bookstore. The work went well the first 6 weeks. Then one quiet afternoon, while I was unpacking, a customer, who happened to be in one of my classes, asked me for help finding a particular book. As I searched the shelves with him, the assistant manager yelled across the store, "Pete, get back to work!" "Work? I was working. I'm helping this customer," I shouted back. "You're talking to your friend," came the reply. "Now get back to work." As I returned to the box I'd been unpacking, I began to fume. What was I expected to do if a customer asked for my help? Then, cautious not to cuss, I screamed my answer across the store. "The next time a customer asks for my help, I'll tell them to go to hell." When I arrived the following day, the store manager called me into her office and told me she had to let me go. "But I didn't even swear," I protested. That didn't matter, but I'd no time to dwell on the injustice. My college plan depended on me working, so I marched straight from the bookstore back to the job placement center. "I need a job," I told the lady behind the counter. "What kind of work are you interested in?" she asked. "Doesn't matter," I said, "just as long as they'll hire me." "Then you should go to Jack in the Box," she said. "They're always asking us for applicants." I caught the bus to Jack in the Box, filled out the application, and was told to start the next day. Less than 24 hours after I got the axe from the bookstore, I stood wearing a paper hat and a polyester knit shirt, sizing up the vats of hot grease. As fry cook, I was responsible for deep frying French fries, fruit pies, and tacos. Scut work that any simpleton could do, except for this one. The tacos just weren't my forte. I'd stuff the taco shells with so much lettuce and cheese that they'd crack. Customers would complain, so to prevent the shells from busting, I then put almost no lettuce or cheese inside. Again, complaints. So then I'd cram this damn stuff in again until the shell broke. My ineptness quickly earned me a new assignment. As cashier, I faced the even trickier responsibility of handling customers. Again, a seemingly straightforward task. Again, I was the exception. Some customers were actually polite and patient. To them, I was courteous and kind by sliding them large orders of fries in place of the small ones they'd paid for, or giving them 2 cheeseburgers for the price of 1. That was easy. Much more challenging was trying to remain courteous to the many jerk-off customers. If I'd been on the other side of the counter and out of uniform, these same people would have been courteous enough to hold the door open for me. But because I stood behind the counter, I was nothing more than a shooting gallery target to them. The $5 they spent on crappy eats was the price of admission for them to take shots at the sitting duck in the paper hat. But this duck shot back. Once while I was making a milkshake, a customer called in my direction. "Shawanda, Shawanda!" I looked at him and wondered why he was yelling at me. "Shawanda!" Oh yeah, I remembered. Customers actually read the requisite name tags. I'd promptly thrown away each Pete name tag issued to me. But I still complied with Jack in the Box's rules by digging through the collection of old name tags and choosing one with a name least like my own. Tawasha, Chandrella, Shawanda. Shawanda, can you move any fucking slower? Yep, I said, then shuffled in half-inch steps towards him with his milkshake. See, I can move a lot slower. Just give me my food, asshole. Wait, you haven't seen how slow I can move. I stopped dead in my tracks. Give me my food! The manager rushed over and grabbed the milkshake and handed it to the customer. Then he turned to me and scowled. You just earned a date with the dishes. Since the place employed no dishwasher, the manager would try to recruit a cook or a cashier to hit the sinks. My coworkers, who considered the task filthy and degrading, all balked at those requests. Foolishly, without any first-hand experience, I'd done the same. And if no volunteer came forward, then the chore was meted out as punishment. Ah, you're fucked, one cashier said to me as I trudged toward the back with my head down. Crap, I thought, I don't want to do this. And the rear, out of sight of both customers and my coworkers, I found a sink full of dirty spatulas, trays, food storage containers, French fry racks, and the like. I wanted to slip out the back door and split, but then what? Slink back to the job placement office to ask them, now that I'd blown a second job, could I please have a third? As I stood at the sink, a cook sidled up to me. He looked over his shoulder, then slipped me a burger. That's a raw deal you got, he said. I thanked him for the free grub. After filling the sinks with soapy warm water, I sunk my teeth into the bacon cheeseburger and made a stab at the dishes. Without much conviction, I dragged a scrub brush back and forth across a French fry rack. Meanwhile, the bustle of the operation echoed around me. The frying food sizzling, the employees barking out orders, the customers whining. It was a relief to be out of the food ordering, preparation, serving loop and away from the constant pressure that accompanied those jobs. I took another bite of the burger. A little radio sat above the sink. I flipped it on. Another bite, another swabbing. Then I looked around. No one could see what I was up to. So I set the scrub brush down, finished the burger, and fiddled with the radio dial. Why the others despised this chore was beyond me. Filthy? Manning the vats of hot grease was far filthier. Degrading? Kowtowing to the customers was far more degrading. This ain't so bad, I thought. Not bad at all. When the manager approached, I grabbed the scrub brush again. You learning your lesson? He asked. See what happens when you're a smart ass? I most surely did. After that, I never missed an opportunity to clash with a customer. If a woman paid by throwing her money on the counter, then I threw back her change. If a guy bawled at me about having given him the wrong size soda, then I gave him the correct size of the wrong soda. The result, spending a couple hours away from the bastards, hardly felt punitive. In the back, out of the limelight, I could lollygag to my heart's content, freed from the shackles of responsibilities. I'd listen to the oldies station and drink chocolate milkshakes while dragging out the chores for hours on end. The boss, relieved that the chore was being done at all, never complained. Eventually, I chose to forego the customer confrontations and just volunteered outright for dish duty. But I had to do so grudgingly. I feared that if the manager discovered my affection for the loath chore, that he might punish my slack work with dishes for forcing me instead to cook food or ring up customers. But if dishwashing was my calling, I wasn't listening. I soon quit Jack in the Box to take a job as a church janitor, a plum position that involved plenty of pew napping. Since accepting that initial $2,500 loan, I resisted borrowing any more money for school. The idea behind the loans was that a student could rack up a bunch of debt and then pay it off when he had a degree-required, high-paying job. But in my case, I had no desire for a job like that. So taking on any more debt was a scary thought. That $2,500 was already giving me enough worries. But the janitorial gig didn't pay nearly enough to cover my school costs. So when the tuition for the approaching semester is due in the middle of my third year, I was at a loss about what to do. Then, a couple days before the semester began, I drunkenly destroyed the furniture in my campus apartment for little more reason than because it was fun to do so. The dean of students who'd once chastised me for having a complete lack of respect for authority booted me out. So, sprung from school sooner than expected, I kept my word to my classmates. I slept on their dorm room floors. In the meantime, dreams of finally seeing the rest of the country filled my head. To save up money, I fulfilled my fifth grade fantasy by picking up work on some house painting crews. My childhood fantasy of idly painting while listening to the radio and munching on sandwiches wasn't one shared by my employers. My first paint job boss often complained of me being the straggler on the crew. The boss of the second crew echoed that sentiment. The boss guy of the third outfit was even worse. He was so ambitious about working at a breakneck pace that he had us painting 3 different houses simultaneously, even though the whole crew totaled only him, me, and my friend Tony. When this boss complained about my tempo, he said, "This is what you need." He held out to me the secret of his own speediness, a palmful of amphetamines. Pick-me-ups still put me off. I passed on the pills. Then one day I spent hours sitting on a roof with my transistor radio and my sandwiches while painting some eaves. That afternoon, Tony came out over from the house he'd been painting. He said he was sick of trying to keep up with the job's manic pace and was going to quit as soon as the speed freak arrived with our pay. If Tony was leaving, then there was no way I was going to be left behind to paint 3 houses with that fiend. When the fiend in question arrived, Tony quit and I was paid in full. But when the boss then noticed that I hadn't come close to finishing the eaves, he said to me, "You're the worst employee I've ever had." "Yeah," I replied. "Well, I quit too." "You can't quit," he said, "because you're fired." How pathetic, I thought. "I already quit," I said. "You can't fire me." "Yeah, I can." "No, you can't." "Yeah, I can." He then proceeded to count out exactly half the cash he owed me for the week. "Where's the rest?" I asked. "That's all your slow ass deserves," he said with a wild glint in his drugged eyes. Though I was pissed he had me, I left with my half pay. That's page 28. So the next chapter will be called Fragile.